Hey, what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I am doing another book haul. Now, I have a whopping 30 books in this haul, which definitely makes it my biggest of the year. That large number mostly consists of the many gifts I've been sent by publishers. I have a ton of new releases that I'm excited to share with you, but personally, I really have not been buying a ton of books this year, and that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, with school and my internship, I just have not been reading at the same pace, which is fine because I gotta get that degree. I'm also trying really hard to make my way through books I already own first, and finally, due to COVID, bookstores have not been open, I have not been going to them, and that's where I feel a lot of my book purchases come from. But I think I've got an interesting mix for today's haul, and I really hope you guys enjoy. But before we dive in, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes you can take right from your home on a variety of subjects like art, entrepreneurship, technology, organization, and so much more. Whether you are looking to explore your creativity, master a certain skill, or just gain some knowledge on topics that interest you, Skillshare provides you with classes that are easy to consume but still very thorough. They aim to make learning more affordable and accessible, with their yearly subscription topping out at under $10 per month. I often gravitate towards the filmmaking and editing classes as a YouTuber, but I've also taken countless ones on productivity, such as Productivity for Creatives, Turning Your Ideas into Action. This class really focused on finding your drive and using habits and tools you have to make your creative ideas a reality. Skillshare is offering the first 1,000 people who sign up using the link in my description 2 months of Skillshare Premium totally free, so please check them out. I really like the service, and doing so really helps support my channel while giving me the opportunity to learn something new. So I really wanted to start off this haul by talking about a handful of books that I recently bought, all by Black authors. I make a consistent and constant effort to read diversely, and especially from marginalized authors, all the time. That's something that I always consider in the books I'm picking up. But it's no secret that America is kind of supercharged by the Black Lives Matter movement right now, and I know that I personally have been more involved than ever. I totally don't have the space to really delve into that topic within this haul, but if you are looking for more of my thoughts, some resources, ways to educate yourself, and ways to get involved, I have firstly a community post on my YouTube channel that I will link below, and I also have an Instagram highlight with tons of different ways that you can do so. First up is actually my most recent read, and that is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. I actually bought this through a Black-owned bookstore in Brooklyn called Cafe Con Libros, and I found out about them because I believe it's bookstore.org has a list of a ton of different Black-owned bookstores that you can order online through and support, so I'll link that down below as well. This is a nonfiction that really explores the concept of anti-racism at length. It talks about how it intersects with things like culture and class and geography and the many different ways it's present in all of our lives. I actually listened to it on audio, which was narrated by Ibram X. Kendi, and it was a really wonderful experience, but I have to say I do wish I had chosen to read it physically because there were so many profound thoughts that I knew I wanted to go back to later, and I would have loved to just highlight and mark this book up, which is something I never do, so you know I really wanted to. It was very transformative. I feel that any person who has an interest in getting involved in anti-racist work and deconstructing their biases could benefit from it. I picked it up on recommendation from one of my grad school professors who actually taught our course in multicultural counseling, and I didn't realize until afterwards that he really recommended reading Stamped from the Beginning, which is a previous work of Ibram X. Kendi. It's not necessarily related, you can definitely read it first, but it ties more into like the historical roots of racism and how it's been seen throughout history, and I definitely plan on going back to it later. It was super valuable, very timely and topical, and absolutely a book I can sense myself reaching for in the future. If you are personally involved in any of the topics that I've been talking about, I really recommend picking this one up. Next up is a book I just got in the mail today. It was sent to me by Hyperion, and that is The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert. Brandy Colbert is a contemporary YA author that I have read 2 books from previously, and I have loved them both deeply, so I'm totally on the hunt to just make my way through her entire bibliography. Is that what it's called? Is that a bibliography, all the books and authors published? I'm trying to think of like what discography is for authors. So from what I can gather about this book, it's about these two teens on the hunt to vote. We have one character, Marva, who has always been waiting for her voice to count. She's been excited for the day she can vote for the first time. And then we also follow Duke, who doesn't really care about politics. He just kind of wants to get voting over with so he can resume back to his normal life. But Duke is not able to vote, and Marva makes it her mission to like go all over town and get into these different shenanigans in order to make their vote count. I love contemporaries about teen activism, and I think it definitely comes from a place of me not caring about politics as much as a teen. It was something I only really got into in college, and I've been so inspired over the last few years to see the way teenagers really want to get involved and make a difference in the world. So that's a topic I love reading about. I have a lot of trust in Brandy Colbert. She's a fantastic writer who makes very well-developed, well-rounded characters, so I'm excited to pick this one up. Next up, I have a couple of books that were kindly sent to me by HarperCollins. The first is The Black Flamingo, and that is by Dean Atta. It won the American Libraries Association's Stonewall Award, which I know is a very prestigious honor. Oh, wait, it looks like... I did not know the naked book was that gorgeous. Our main character's name is Michael. He is mixed race Greek and Jamaican and also gay. And all I really know about the book is that as he is coming out and coming to terms with his sexuality, he discovers the world of drag and takes on this persona and this role of the Black Flamingo. Something I was only just recently reminded about is that the Black Flamingo is actually told in verse, meaning that it is written like poetry through lyricism. And despite the fact that I have never been one to really take a liking to poetry, I've really loved books in verse recently. And so that even made me more excited to read it. Because I've like really been in a mood for books in verse lately, I think this is going to be one of the very next ones I pick up, and I'm really excited for it because I've heard nothing but stellar reviews. Speaking of books in verse, the next book I was sent by HarperCollins is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I consider Elizabeth Acevedo a favorite author of mine because this is now the third book from her that I've read, and I've loved them all so deeply. Clap When You Land is also written in verse, and it follows two different girls, one who lives in New York City and another who lives in the Dominican Republic. And they are half sisters but do not know it until their father dies in a plane crash, and it sort of brings the two of them together. This is another book that has like a ridiculously gorgeous naked cover. Clap When You Land was absolutely phenomenal. I ended up finishing like the second half of the book in just one sitting because I did not want to part from this beautiful story. Elizabeth Acevedo narrates all of her audiobooks, and I listened to the first two on audio, and she just has the most gorgeous, delicious, gooey voice that even though I read this one physically, I read it in her voice. It is such a touching story about grief, family, friendship, sisterhood. It also delves into sexuality and rape culture. It's stunning all around, at the top of my recommendations list. I think it is one of my favorite books of the year and also my favorite Elizabeth Acevedo book. And finally, from HarperCollins, I have another book that I have just been dying to read, and that is Felix Ever After by Kacen Callender. Felix Ever After is a coming-of-age story following a young boy named Felix who is Black, queer, and transgender, and it basically is a story of him finding himself as well as falling in love for the first time. And while that all may seem really lovely and warm, someone is anonymously posting transphobic messages about Felix online, for example, using his dead name and photos of him before he transitioned. I feel like Felix Ever After is one of the hottest books on my timeline right now. It seems like everyone is reading it and raving about it, so it's another one I'm definitely looking forward to getting to. Next up, I have a really wonderful and unique gift that was sent to me by Kristen from Gryffindor Reader, and it is this copy of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. But if you can't notice, there's something different about it. Kristen amazingly took this copy of Daisy Jones and the Six and turned it into emmmabooks and the Six. So she has me on the cover, also on the spine, and then the back is a photo of me and Michael dressed up as Daisy and Billy, and it has the Aurora album track list on it. She also went out of her way to paint all the edges of it, and it is just one of the coolest, most unique gifts I have ever received. I've shown this to so many people that have either read about Daisy Jones or just know how much I love it, and everyone is always amazed. So thank you so much, Kristen. I really, really appreciate it and will always treasure it. Next up, I have what are a couple of like mystery thrillers. The first is I Killed Zoe Spanos by Kit Frick. This book was sent to me by Simon & Schuster, and it follows a girl named Anna who is going on vacation in the Hamptons this summer, but she arrives in a town where they are still all shaken up by the disappearance of a girl named Zoe that happened months prior. Apparently, Anna also bears an eerie resemblance to Zoe, and the town begins to think the two are connected. And that only rises when 2 months later, Zoe's body is found and Anna is charged with manslaughter. And thus, Anna tries to prove her innocence, but her confession is riddled with holes. It also appears to have a sort of podcast angle, and it says that it's perfect for fans of Sadie, which is another YA mystery thriller that also has been told like half in podcast. I adore the cover of this book. I love the illustration, and I really enjoy reading mystery thrillers, especially from an unreliable narrator. So it's definitely one I'm gonna pick up, and I'm excited to see what I think. Next up, I have another mystery that was sent to me by Penguin Teen, and it is They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman. And the first thing that really compelled me about this story is that it takes place on Long Island, which I am from. This is an advanced reader copy of the book, and it comes out this July. Our main character's name is Jill, and during her freshman year of high school, her best friend was murdered by her boyfriend who confessed, and it was like case closed. During her senior year, Jill becomes a member of her school's like secret society, and she thinks it's going to be her best year yet, but she starts getting some anonymous texts from someone who is proclaiming the boyfriend's innocence, and Jill is determined to find out who actually killed her friend. I'm a sucker for mysteries and secret societies, and I'm particularly pumped that it takes place in my like home island, I guess. Ew, that's so weird to say. But I'm very much hoping this is going to be one I really enjoy. Next up, I have another book that I actually also bought on bookshop.org, and that is The Ethical Slut by Janet W. Hardy and Dossie Easton. On the back, it says, it is the 20th anniversary edition of the classic guide to polyamory, open relationships, and finding freedom in sex and love. I received this book on high recommendation from a friend, as I do have a couple of poly people close to me, and it is something I've never really taken the time to explore, so I thought I would give it a shot. While I personally don't consider myself polyamorous, I feel like there's so much to be learned from this book about relationships in general, boundaries, honesty, communication, jealousy, and intimacy, and also like slut shaming and the culture around sex in general. So many months ago, pre-COVID, when I was first recommended this book, like a week or two later, I was out to dinner with another friend, and at the table next to us, this group of people were all talking about how they like had to read The Ethical Slut, and they heard it was amazing, and how they were just really going to own their independence in sexuality. And I was like, this is a sign that I gotta read this book. I'm very excited about it. It's definitely out of my comfort zone for what I typically read, but I feel like I can really learn a lot. The next book I recently bought is Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth, and you must be familiar with that name as she's the author of Divergent, but this is her first adult release. Chosen Ones appears to be a different take on the Chosen One trope, as it follows a group of teens who were prophesized to end this very powerful entity called the Dark One, and they successfully defeated him. So for the past 15 years, the Chosen Ones have not only been very famous, but a lot of them are traumatized from their experiences with the Dark One. And on the newest anniversary since his defeat, the unthinkable happens when a Chosen One dies, and they find out that the Dark One's plan was much bigger than any of them had anticipated. I've been reading a lot of adult books lately, and I've kind of been seeking out the level of depth and sophistication that I find in a lot of them. So a new one from an author that I know and have enjoyed in the past, that has some tropes that I always tend to love, it seemed like the perfect fit for me. I've also heard some pretty good reviews from friends, and I just feel like I really have the potential to enjoy this one. Next up, I have The Knockout Queen by Rupi Thorpe, and and I got this from Book of the Month. I did an unboxing with them recently, so if you want to check it out, I'll link that below. This book follows two neighbors, one who is named Bunny, and she is like the pretty, popular, successful girl at school, but she's having difficulty hiding her father's alcoholism. Michael lives next door in a cramped cottage with his aunt, and he spends most of his day attempting to pretend to be straight, but at night he goes online for some anonymous encounters with men that both thrill and scare him. So it appears to be the story of the unlikely friendship between Bunny and Michael, and how they both use each other and their friendship to cope with the different troublesome things they have going on in their lives. I've been really interested in reading The Knockout Queen. I don't actually think I've heard many reviews of it, but it's pretty short and like it feels like a contemporary that I could just fly through easily. I love stories that deal with friendship and some serious issues like sexual orientation or addiction. It seems to have a lot of elements that I love, so I really hope it does not disappoint. And the other book from Book of the Month I was most excited about is Happy and You Know It by Laura Hankin. Our main character's name is Claire, and when her band has left her behind in order to pursue superstardom without her, she becomes a playgroup musician for some wealthy people in New York, which she surprisingly begins to enjoy. As Claire grows closer to the wealthy socialite women who are paying her bills, she discovers some secrets about them, and I sense that she also grows to like them a lot more than she first anticipated. It's described as being very humorous with shocking twists, and I really can't tell what kind of book this is going to be. Like, the secrets things makes me feel like it might have like some mystery thriller influence, but it also just feels like a funny, lighthearted contemporary. I'm not sure what to make of it, but it seems very different from a lot of the books that I've read, so I definitely think it's one I'm going to be keeping on my TBR. Next up on this haul, I have some fantasy / even dystopian YA books. Not something I frequently haul on my channel, but the first is a classic series I love, which is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. This almost entire set of Shatter Me, besides the first book, was so kindly sent to me by HarperCollins, which I'm so grateful for. Back in 2014, I had read what was at the time the entire Shatter Me trilogy, featuring Shatter Me, Unravel Me, and Ignite Me. But in the last couple of years, we've actually gotten a second trilogy, which is Restore Me, Defy Me, and the most recent conclusion, Imagine Me. If you did miss the Shatter Me hype a couple of years back, it follows a girl named Juliet who has the power to kill people with her touch. Little 17-year-old Emma loved Shatter Me so much. I found Tahereh's writing to be so beautiful, and I was just absolutely enthralled with all of the characters in this series. And in the last few years, I have not gotten around to reading the last trilogy, mostly because I have not had them, but now that I do, I'm definitely excited to dive back in. I feel like I definitely need a reread of Shatter Me though, despite the fact that younger me definitely loved it. It has been so long since I read it, so I would love to find some time to just like dedicate myself to reading through the original trilogy and then just giving the new book a try to see how I feel about it. I've honestly heard some mixed reviews about the newer installments, but I'm the type of person that does like to make my opinions on my own. As someone who has read multiple books by Tahereh since Shatter Me, and I've really enjoyed them, I do think that this one has the power to bring back some of my original love for the series. Let's keep going with the throwbacks, shall we? Next up, I have The Fiery Heart and The Ruby Circle, both by Richelle Mead, and I don't actually know what number books these are. I think this is book 6, and this is book 5. So these are books 4 and 6 in the Bloodlines series, which is the spin-off sequel to Vampire Academy. I read all of Vampire Academy and all of Bloodlines, and I thoroughly loved both series. These books were sent to me by Alexa from Page of Love Alexa on Twitter. Thank you so much, Alexa, for sending them to me. Now, I don't know if any other big readers or like book collectors feel the same way, but there are some books that I just like don't want to buy. A good example is when I have books in a series that I have already read and want to own, but I just don't want to put down the money for it. And as I have only the first 3 books in the Bloodline series, the rest of them fall under that category. I am I'm not a huge books for trade person, I casually lurk the hashtag every once in a while, often looking for like arcs that I've been really wanting to collect or books like this that I just don't want to buy and would rather trade for. Alexa is someone I've actually traded with in the past, and when I reached out to her about these two books, initially wanting to trade, she said that she would just send them to me for free because I had sent her a couple of extra books that she wanted the last time I sent her books. That was so kind of her, and it's always a pleasure trading with Alexa, so thank you so much for adding these to my collection. I'm really happy that all I'm looking for is Silver Shadows. So honestly, if anyone has a good condition paperback copy of Silver Shadows, I'm specifically searching for the paperbacks to match. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter, and maybe we can set up a trade because I would definitely love to lock down the last of that series. Next up, I have Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, and this is the gorgeous Fairy Loot exclusive edition. So thank you so much to Fairy Loot for sending me your Chain of Gold box. I'll link that unboxing below if you want to see the other absolutely incredible Shadowhunter goodies I got. I love this cover of Chain of Gold so much. I am definitely always partial to like the OG Cassie Clare style portraits and people on her covers, but I really love when we get these like super luxurious canvas gold plated books. It has Cortana on the front and the tagline, "Love cuts deeper than any blade," on the back. It also has black stained edges, and Cortana is like stenciled out on the side. Definitely one of the prettiest, most unique books that I now own, and I'm really excited to add it to my collection. Next up, I have what is a very exciting new release, and that is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, and this is, of course, the new novel in the Hunger Games series. This is a prequel following a character whom we've always known as President Snow, but in this book he is Coriolanus. Side note, terrible fucking name. I hate that I have to read it every 5 seconds. But it follows him during the 10th Hunger Games. As a promising boy from the capital, he becomes a mentor to the new tributes. Wait, where's my bookmark? I lost my bookmark. Oh, that sucks. There it is. Okay, I was gonna tell you what page I'm on, but now I don't know anymore. This book has been a little controversial. It had a lot of mixed opinions when the plot of it was first released, and even more so now that the book has come out. I am more than half of the way through now. I'm in part 3 of the book, and I've really been enjoying my time reading it, mostly because it is like so wonderful to be back in the world of the Hunger Games. I think I really forgot how much I truly loved the Hunger Games until I dived back into the world in this prequel. I've been rewatching the movies over the last couple of days, and now I'm just totally invigorated to reread the whole series. It's been so fascinating to see the difference in 65 years of how the Hunger Games has changed and what it originally looked like. I do feel it pales in comparison to the Hunger Games, which was just much more engaging and intriguing. There's a couple of plot points in here that I'm like a little skeptical of, but it's really fascinating, and it's been one of the only books recently to really motivate me to read and invest in a story, so it's been more influential in that regard. And additionally, this is not a book that is trying to give a redemption arc to President Snow. It is like a villain origin story, and it explains a lot of his past, and I do not feel that Suzanne Collins is trying to justify that in any regard. So I don't feel I agree with many of the critiques at this particular point in my read, and even though it's not the most amazing sequel that I've ever read, I'm really happy I gave it a chance. I received another book from HarperCollins, and that is Burn by Patrick Ness. Patrick Ness is an author that I have read a few books from. I think I have read A Monster Calls, The Rest of Us Live Here, and Release. So while this book takes place in 1957 America, it very clearly has a large fantasy influence, as our main character named Sarah and her father have to hire a dragon to work on their farm, which apparently is something only the very poor do. I honestly feel like possession of dragons would be more indicative of wealth, but it seems like a very fascinating world. Sarah becomes very entranced by this dragon, very curious about this animal that supposedly doesn't have a soul but appears to really want to protect her. And it says, the dragon knows something she doesn't. He has arrived at the farm with a prophecy on his mind. A prophecy that involves a deadly assassin, a cult of dragon worshippers, 2 FBI agents in hot pursuit, and somehow Sarah herself. So the thing with Patrick Ness's books is they sort of all take place in like a modern setting, but they always have this fantastical element that throws off the entire like structure of the world that we know. With my experience reading his books, that aspect has always turned me off. I think his writing is great and I really enjoyed his characters and the stories that he tells, but that mixture of real life and fantasy, which I typically love, has just been like historically very bizarre for me. I'm unsure how I'm gonna feel about this book, but his synopses are just like always so damn intriguing that I can't resist. I'm excited to see what I think, and we'll see how it goes. To close out this haul, I have a couple of YA contemporaries I'm excited about. The first being American Royals by Kathryn McGee. This is a book that I saw quite a lot of people talking about when it first came out. It appears to follow what would happen if the Americans had a royal family. It seems to just follow the scandalous life of a royal family behind all of the power and wealth that they have. I feel like royal family stories have become really popular, and maybe they were kind of always popular. Right now I'm just thinking about Red, White, and Royal Blue and the Royals, but I feel like this take on like an American royal family would be super interesting. I don't know much about this one, but I'm intrigued to read it, and I'm hoping it's going to be full of a lot of chaos. The final books in this haul were all sent to me by Epic Reads and Harper Teen, the first being Stay Gold by Tobley McSmith. Our first main character's name is Pony, and he has recently transferred to a new school and is trying to keep his head low while protecting his identity as a trans boy. Our other main character is starting to realize that there might be more to life than cheerleading, so in order to also keep low for the rest of the year, she has made a pact to herself for no dating. I've seen many rave reviews of Stay Gold, especially from trans reviewers, which is particularly important to me when I'm picking up a book that is outside of my own lane. Oh, it's also written by a trans author, which is even more important. I feel like I knew that, but I'm happy to have the confirmation. It seems like a great summer read for me, and definitely a YA contemporary I'm hoping to pick up soon. Next up from Epic Reads, I have You Don't Live Here by Robin Schneider. You Don't Live Here follows a girl named Sasha who is forced to live with her estranged grandparents after the recent death of her mother. While grieving this incredibly significant loss, Sasha doesn't really know who she is anymore and starts to fall into the path of who people think she should be. But Sasha begins falling for a girl named Lily, which is something incredibly new to her, and she has to kind of determine if it is worth abandoning what she is known for what she could be. As a proud bisexual, I am always looking for more bi rep, and I'm especially excited about this one that seems to deal with a lot of different topics like grief, sexuality, and discovering yourself, and also a romance between two girls, which can be a little bit harder to find in literature. I can't remember if I've read any Robin Schneider books. I've known of her over the years, and maybe I just haven't picked anything up, but it seems like a heartwarming story, one that I could really enjoy, and I'm excited for it. The next book on my haul from Harper Teen is Love Creekwood by Becky Albertalli, and this is a novella set in the Simonverse. If you are unaware, the Simonverse refers to the books set in the same world as Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, The Upside of Unrequited, and Leah on the Offbeat. There they are, all on the back. I'm pretty familiar with the Simonverse. I read and loved Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. I really enjoyed The Upside of Unrequited, and I've watched the Love Simon movie like a zillion times. I have yet to read Leah on the Offbeat, and I've also been interested in watching Love Victor, which is the completely original like spin-off TV series of Love Simon, so it follows like a totally new cast and story. I have not read or watched it yet, but I'm looking forward to, so I'm really familiar with this world and their characters, and they are super sweet and lovable. It seems to be a novella with the combined experiences from different characters in this world, and I think it's going to be a really awesome addition for big fans of Becky. Next book I have from Harper Teen is Paper Girl of Paris by Jordan Taylor. This is another dual timeline story. The present storyline follows a girl named Alice who is spending the summer in Paris after her grandmother has recently passed away, and she is determined to explore her grandmother's mysterious Parisian apartment that has not been opened for 70 years. And then in the past, we follow a character named Adeline, who I believe is Alice's grandmother, and it takes place when the Nazis are occupying Paris, and Adeline falls for the leader of a resistance group and feels like she has the ability to fight back. Or maybe it's not her grandmother, but it's definitely someone in her family. I was initially interested in this book just because, like, I love Paris. I spent last summer in Paris and it was incredible, but I'm really intrigued knowing that it is not only dual timeline, but it also has this historical impact and takes place during World War II. This year I read a book called They Went Left, which is another World War II book, and though I am not a historical fiction person, or I've always considered myself to not be a historical fiction person, I'm finding myself more interested in historical novels, which is very exciting. It seems like a really interesting one, and I'm definitely looking forward to finding out some more of these connections between Alice and her family's past. And the final book for this book haul is The Falling in Love Montage by Sierra Smith. This YA contemporary follows a girl named Saoirse who is grappling with her mother's early onset dementia, and because Saoirse is likely to develop the condition herself one day, she is completely sworn off romance and does not believe in happy endings. In comes Ruby, who is determined to find a loophole in Saoirse's no romance rule, so she proposes that they just have a summer of fun, complete with every cliche movie perfect date they can think of, and that at the end of the summer they will say goodbye. Which, duh, it's a romance, that's not gonna happen. I love reading romances between women. They were extremely helpful for me in discovering my own sexuality and coming to terms with accepting myself. So now reading them as someone who is out and proud is very exciting. This seems like a super cute one with very dynamic characters, and I'm excited to give it a chance. So that concludes this book haul. I really hope you guys enjoyed. So many books I have been reading and enjoying, and also ones that I'm very excited to dive into soon. In the comments below, I would love to know what books you have picked up recently, and especially because of the pandemic, I've been curious to know how you guys have been purchasing your books and where you've been getting them from. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for a new one. Bye!